Hello, I'm Greg Hrutkay, Hrutkay Mods, and welcome to another DOS Lab, DOS Dude video where we're upgrading this. So anyway, I've already filmed the next part of this video, so we'll just let Collin take it away. So let's get to it. Alright, so Collin, what are you up to today?
Well, I'm going to be upgrading the system memory on this, what is this, a 2013 MacBook Air?
It's early
2014 MacBook Air. So as you can see, it's got 8 gigabytes installed at the moment. So we're just going to be upgrading that to 16 gigabytes, which was never a configuration offered by Apple.
And if you guys are curious, this is actually my MacBook Air, which I actually bought off of Jay Bry. And he assembled this, I think, out of spare parts. It's a really nice system. It's like new, and even though the battery's got over 400 cycles and the battery's almost perfect, it lasts forever, and it's a very useful system, and I think it's going to be even more useful with a RAM upgrade. What do you think?
Definitely, for sure.
Definitely. So yeah, Collin, I guess take it away and let's see the whole process here.
All right, we'll go ahead and do it.
Ooh.
All right, so of course, step one is to just disassemble the machine. And that's pretty straightforward. Go ahead and do that now.
So what's that other die on the CPU?
That's the PCH.
Yeah. That's why they never taste it.
Yes. I guess they determined that the thermal transfer from the CPU to the PCH would just cause the PCH to get hotter than if it wasn't connected to the heatsink at all.
Makes sense. What are you doing now?
We're going to put it on the board preheater to remove each of these 4 RAM chips right here.
Gotcha.
Alright, so in order to do that, we'll just start by applying some flux to each of the chips. And now that that's done, we'll just simply use the hot air to remove each of them. Alright, so now that we've removed all the chips, we have to wick the pads and remove all the residual solder to prepare them for new chips to be installed. Alright, now that we're done wicking, all we need to do is just clean the old flux off of the pads. Alright, and with the pads completely clean, we can now prepare the new chips to be soldered onto the board. So in order to do that, I'm just going to get each chip, put right here. And we're just going to apply a small amount of flux to each one. And with the flux on the chips, we're just going to heat them on the preheater here, just to get the flux to flow across all the solder balls. Alright, so the chips are now prepared, so now we can just put the board back on the board preheater and get them aligned into position. So before we do that, we do want to apply just a little bit of flux to the board as well. And now we can take each chip and place it onto the board. Alright, and now with each chip in its general location, I just kind of like to move them around a little bit to get the flux to flow across the board a little bit more evenly. And then we can just go ahead and get them aligned to the pads and ensure that they're pretty well centered here. Okay, and then I always take a flashlight and do one final alignment check. Alright, and they look to be pretty well aligned there, so now we'll just take the hot air once again and heat them to solder them on. Alright, so all 4 chips have now been soldered on successfully. So go ahead and turn off the hot air and the board preheater here and let the board cool down.
So how about how long does it take for the board to cool down?
Not too long. Once it cools down just a little bit and still has a decent amount of heat in it, I'm just going to clean the flux off because it comes off a lot easier when it's warm. And look, I just noticed someone repaired the backlight circuit on this machine.
Yeah, I guarantee it was Jay. Like I said, he built them out of parts.
Yeah, I've repaired this exact same issue before on these. Where that one corner pad fails, or when water damage occurs, that one corner pad gets burned up. Alright, so now the board is nice and clean. I removed most of the flux from around the chips. So now the thing we need to do is we need to desolder the SPI ROM in order to program it to update the SPD info for the installed system memory. Now, for those of you who don't know, these machines never came with more than 8 gigs of RAM, and as such do not have any SPD configuration via strap resistors that you can set to tell it that there's 16 gigabytes of system memory installed. So in order to rectify this, we're just going to desolder the SPI ROM, dump it, modify the SPD info in the SPI ROM to set the correct data for the 16 gigabyte configuration we have installed, and then it should detect it and work as intended. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get the board back on the preheater once again, and this time flip it around so we can desolder the SPI ROM instead. And then we can get the chip dumped and begin the modifications. Alright, so as you can see there, I've removed the SPI ROM successfully. So now what we're going to do is just clean the chip off and put it into the EEPROM programmer. Okay. Alright, so as you can see here, I've got a little EEPROM adapter for the EEPROM that I removed from the MacBook logic board. So I'm just going to go ahead and insert it like so. Forget the actual orientation of pin 1, they're opposite. with each of these, so I'm just going to try it right here first and see if it has any problem with that. And with that installed, we'll open the EEPROM programming software and do a 25 flash detect. And that's backwards, so we'll flip it around real quick. Okay, and now I need to verify the exact model of the chip. 6406E, like they always are. Alright, and now that the correct chip is selected, we'll just select read. Alright, and now that the SPI ROM has been read, we'll go ahead and save it to a file. So I'll just save it to the desktop. I'll just name it Hrutkay.bin. And now we have a copy of Greg Hrutkay's MacBook Air SPI ROM right there. So now what we want to do is open that using the UEFI tool. So I'll go ahead and open that real quick. And in order to do this, you want to use the old school version of the UEFI tool, not the new engine version, because the new engine version does not support the functionality that we need. So we'll go ahead and open image file, go to the desktop, and select the Hrutkay image right there. So first thing we need to do is locate the SPD info in the system's ROM. And in order to do that, we'll just look up the leading bytes for the SPD data that we're going to be using. So in that case, I've actually got it open right here already. It's the LPDDR3 16GB Hynix SPD info, which I dumped from a 2015 MacBook Air, which has this configuration in its system BIOS. So we're just going to search by the first few bits here, or the first few bytes. And this is the header info for SPD info for specifically LPDDR3. So in this case, it's 9120F1. And if you watch my video on this upgrade, I do explain exactly what all this means. So if you want to see more info, just go ahead and check that out. So we'll go ahead and search for those 3 bytes right there, 9120F1. And we should find a few pieces of info, as you can see we have right here. So as you can see, each of these raw section headers is a specific piece of SPD info. So you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different pieces of SPD info that is selectable with SPD or strap resistors on this system's motherboard, and you can select these based on that configuration. But since, of course, there's no 16GB configuration, we'll have to modify these appropriately with that SPD info, like I said, that I dumped from the 2015 MacBook Air. So the first thing we're going to do is just right-click on this, select Extract Body, and we'll name it Hrutkay SPD.bin. And now that's extracted, we're gonna want to go ahead and open that in a hex editor. So here we go, Hrutkay SPD, and you can see that there are some part numbers for different memory module types. So you can select these based on the straps on the motherboard, but like I said, that's really no use for us in this instance. So what we're going to do is just go over to the dump of SPD data that I took from the other MacBook Air, and we're just going to copy this first section right here up until these zeros, because we don't need any of this info right here, or any of the extra info. The info that we need that sets the RAM configuration is all located right there. So just go ahead and copy that, and we're going to locate each piece of SPD info in this ROM. So usually they begin with 92 or 91. In fact, they will always begin with 92 or 91. So once you've found one you want to overwrite, just go ahead and select Paste Write. Now as you can see, this one has a few more bytes of data. What I might do is I'll copy the extra bytes here up until the A8 in the case of this dump. So we'll just go ahead and copy that and then paste write that. All that data is now overwritten. So we're going to do that for each one. So you can see there's a 9120 right here. We'll overwrite that. 9120 right there. Overwrite that. 9120 right there. Overwrite that. 9120. Overwrite that. 9210. Overwrite that. 9120 once again. Overwrite. And I think that's everything. So that should be all the SPD data overwritten with our 16 gigabyte configuration. And the only reason I overwrite all of the data like this, even though it's not really using it all, is because I don't really know or care what the straps are set to, because the system memory is no longer on the board. So with that, we'll go ahead and save that. And we'll go back over to UEFI tool, right click on this section we just extracted, select replace body, select Hrutkay SPD. Now, what's tricky about modern Intel BIOSes is there's actually two sections there's two identical sections in the ROM. So we're going to go and replace the first one, but you also have to replace the second one with the identical info or it will not boot. So both of these sections have to be identical. So go ahead and find the second section right here. You can see there it is. The GUID is the same. We'll go ahead and replace body once again. Select the Hrutkay SPD again, and now we are ready to save the modified ROM. So we'll just select File, Save Image File, and we'll say Hrutkay modded.bin, and we'll just tell it yes, open reconstructed file just to make sure it reads it okay, and it did. So now we'll head back over to the programming tool, select Load, select Hrutkay modded.bin, and we'll select Program. So it will take quite a bit of time to write to the chip, so we'll just wait for that to finish.
Yeah, you make that look very easy.
I've done it quite a few times, so.
Most I've ever really done programs like that is do unlocks on BIN-Q drives and Xbox 360s.
Yes.
And not on drives.
Yes, I've done that.
I use like
Jungle Flasher.
Jungle Flasher, and I also use like a Pentium 4.
Yep.
With a native IDE controlled SATA ports on it.
Yep. I use exactly the same.
Yep. I still have my quote-unquote ultimate flashing PC, which has some severe cap plague, but still powers on and works. So.
Yes. Alright, so as you can see, the programming was successful, so we'll go ahead and close that. Remove the adapter from the programmer, and take out our SPI ROM chip. So now we're ready to solder it back onto the board.
Cool. Probably means I should move the camera.
Yes.
Indeed.
Doesn't help that you keep leaving boards all over the floor.
No, I picked those up.
I see that. Yeah.
They end up back there, so I don't bother picking them up anymore.
Alright, so before I solder the ROM back on, I want to prepare it by removing all the leaded solder, lead-free solder, because it makes it a huge pain to resolder these. So, go ahead and apply some flux here. Now we'll go ahead and take the solder wick and just wick all that old solder off of there. Alright, and now that that's mostly wicked off, go ahead and apply some fresh leaded solder to each pad. Now we'll just go ahead and align the chip with pin 1 in the correct orientation, of course. And and solder it on. Alright, and now that the chip is soldered back onto the board, we'll go ahead and clean it up a little bit using some rubbing alcohol, and we should be done.
Well, I mean, you still have to reassemble it.
Well, with the upgrade.
Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Now I'll just go ahead and reassemble it for testing. Alright, and now with the machine partially reassembled, we'll go ahead and power it on and make sure it posts and boots successfully. Alright, so it did post. Let's go ahead and boot into macOS. Now just check the installed system memory and make sure it reads 16 gigabytes.
Now, with me having OpenCore on here, it will never accidentally flash anything, right?
No, it will not. Nope. As long as you run unsupported Monterey with OpenCore, you won't have any issues with firmware updates.
But if I was, for instance, running Big Sur,
Yes, if you're running a natively supported version of macOS without OpenCore, you have the potential for it to do a system firmware update during a system or security update and overwrite the modifications we made.
and then it wouldn't boot.
It would probably still boot, it would just detect less memory.
8 gigs or something like that.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and shut this off because I just realized I don't have the left I/O board plugged in, which is going to make it run extremely slow.
Oh yeah, it's running pretty slow.
So I'm going to just plug that in.
Shaving the chair, I see.
It's all over the house anyways.
All right, now with that board plugged in, you can turn it back on and boot it again.
Okay, that was quicker.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so we're in macOS. That's good. It's still loading up here.
It always seems to take a while for the menu bar to pop up on this install.
Weird.
Isn't it? Why hasn't it popped up yet? That works. It's really weird. It's usually up by now.
Yeah, that's a software thing.
Yeah. If you press them, you can do that upside down.
I don't know what its problem is. Let's reboot it and try one more time.
Yeah. First time I installed OpenCore Legacy Patch on that thing, I didn't even know it had installed. Like, okay, I guess I'm stuck on Big Sur.
Yeah. There's the menu bar. All right, now we can finally check it here.
Maybe? There it goes.
Yep. There it is. 16 gigabytes of a 1600 megahertz DDR3 is installed.
Sweet.
So that's all I need to see there. Go ahead and shut it down once again, and we'll finish reassembling the system. All right, it's all reassembled. Let's give it a final test. It's got to do its first boot since I unplugged the battery. into about this Mac again. As you can see, there it is, 16 gigabytes detected. And we'll also check out the memory section of System Profiler. And as you can see, 2 8 gigabyte modules are installed.
Yeah, it's sweet.
So I'll just hand it back over to Greg and he can finish showing you everything about it.
Yeah, Collin, this is pretty awesome. And that was like record-breaking time.
Yeah, after doing this about 10 times.
Yeah, it must have. It took maybe an hour, if that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know if I need a time lapse after this because you're just really fast at it. But yeah, that's awesome. Well, yeah, we didn't really get to see the profiler there. That's cool. So yeah, guys, if you want Collin to do this, go ahead and reach out to him. Yeah, his channel links will be in everything, and this is just awesome, Collin. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, not a problem at all.
So yeah, guys. Anyway, don't forget, I do now have a Patreon. If you'd like to support me, there'll be a link at the end of the video and also in the description below. And that basically wraps it up for today's video. Thank you again, Collin. And this has been a Hrutkay Mods video. See you guys.